Hey, this is Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot Whistleblower Radio, and I am live in Calabasas, as a matter of fact. Skype is down, so I'm traveling in my car using my cell phone to connect, so hopefully nothing crazy will go on during the show. But I probably spoke too soon because Bob Dean is my guest, my illustrious guest, and he is so amazing. A one-man disclosure project, that's basically what he is. And for those of you who don't know Bob Dean, or Command Sergeant Robert O. Dean, as his official name was way back when, is one of the original disclosure witnesses in terms of the UFO phenomena. And he actually went against his security oath after, something huge, like being in the service for most of his life, really. And he had access to what was called, let me see, I forget what it was called, but a document that was huge at the SHAPE headquarters in Europe, was serving for the Allied command over there. And his superior in the military handed it to him one night when he was very bored, and he sat down to read it, and it absolutely changed his life. And he will be talking about that, I am sure. So that'll be very exciting. And for those of you who don't know, and even for those of you that do know and have seen our many interviews with him, I think this should be a treat because we don't often get him on the radio. And he's always got more to add to his story. And what my challenge is to get him to talk about those things that he hasn't yet touched on. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see how well that goes. I do want to say that our disclosure conference that we had with David Wilcock and Richard Hoagland and Bill Ryan and myself on the 19th of December went very well, and we are now selling it after the fact, the live, the stream from the conference, which has been edited of some of the kind of tedious sound issues we had. Unfortunately, the video did not work, so the people getting the live, the stream from the conference won't be able to actually see the video. The video was problematic because the video and audio, two things, were slightly difficult to deal with simultaneously. And actually, I was the one at the controls, have to say. So, but at any rate, we'll do something like this again very soon. It was very, very good, and the information is absolutely stellar. So I do encourage those listening to buy a stream if you haven't already. And I believe most of the people that registered and were able to listen, or even if they registered and they couldn't make it, got access to the stream by now. But I don't think we have the password-protected edited stream up yet, but maybe we do. I'm trying to get a hold of my webmaster. Skype has been down worldwide, which is actually big news, because I don't know this has ever happened, and it's pretty dire straits for people like me because I don't actually have a landline. And so having Skype is really, really crazy. So we're going to commercial, and we'll be right back with Bob Dean. No doubt about it. There's too much confusion. Anyway, this is Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot Whistleblower Radio, and we should be on the air with Bob Dean. Bob, are you there?
I'm here, sweetheart.
Lovely to hear your voice.
It's nice to hear your voice. I was kind of worried about you.
When were you worried about me? Recently?
Well, I've been watching the TV, and I was worried about you being washed away out there in California.
Oh, exactly, yeah. Well, finally, it's cleared up just tonight and this afternoon. It was beautiful blue sky over the ocean, and I'm ecstatic because we were drowning in water.
Well, I'm sitting here on my patio listening to a drizzling rain.
You're kidding? You have rain?
Oh no, it's kind of pouring here now.
Okay, so you guys were having nothing when we were being in a delusion. Now it maybe it's headed over your way.
You blew it our way, honey, I think.
I guess so. Well, we need clear weather over here in Los Angeles. Otherwise, we're going to lose our reputation.
Well, every bit of rain we can get here, I can appreciate.
Yeah, Arizona, that's for sure.
Well, how have you been? I'm worried about you. You all right?
I've been very well, absolutely fine, and we're having a lot of fun. I guess are you paying some attention to the WikiLeaks situation?
Oh yeah, I try to follow it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been following that with great interest, and other than that, I'm very happy that we have nothing dire to report at this moment.
Carrie, listen to me. Some of the biggest secrets we have in this country are so locked up, so battened down, so covered up, that I don't think WikiLeaks can do anything at all to help.
Really? Yeah, I have to agree with you there in terms of they can't get to the real secrets.
No, the big stuff, the heavy stuff, is so locked down, honey, and it's been locked down for so many years that I don't think Assange and his group can have anything to do with it. It's just, it's not going to be coming out until the so-called powers that be decide that it can come out. And that's not going to be anytime soon.
Yeah, well, you're the one to know, actually. So you don't think that there's any kind of disclosure coming up anytime soon?
Well, Carrie, listen, I don't know whether you saw or heard about my presentation in Laughlin 2 years ago, but I made it clear that a form of disclosure is already underway. Now, I keep teasing my good friends Stephen Bassett and Stephen Greer, who keep feeling that the president's going to hold a press conference and he's going to tell the nation that, hey, we got a big story for you, and we've covered it up for so long and we've kept it from you, but it was for your own good. But now we're going to tell you all about it. Well, that's not going to happen. The president is a very smart young man. He's not about to do anything as stupid as that. He's already got too much on his plate. But a form of disclosure, Carrie, has been underway now for some years.
Well, that part of disclosure, Project Camelot has been a big part of. I mean, we're actively disclosing as much as we can possibly find, and I call you a one-man disclosure project, and the powers that be are allowing us to be out there doing what we're doing because of that.
Well, Carrie, I mentioned to you before, I think, that one of the reasons I've been allowed to get away with what I've been getting away with is that there are people back there, wherever the hell back there is, who want me to do exactly what I'm doing. That they could have shut me down at any time, Carrie. They can shut anybody down if they want to, but they not only have encouraged me, but they have provided information to me from a variety of what I consider to be very reliable sources. And they've been wanting me to speak out openly and publicly now for some time, and I'm getting away with it. And I've been feeling that, yeah, you're probably right, that in a sense I'm part of the disclosure. But the major part of it, Carrie, is what I call subliminal education. What happens when people go to the movies, they watch a television show, they'll read a book or an article, and they're getting educated subliminally, subtly, gently. And that's been going on now for, I think, at least 15 years. Yes.
Absolutely. It's escalating, though. Wouldn't you say it's escalating?
Well, it is, in a sense, yes. I think our good friends from up there, have been playing a major role because they've been showing themselves quietly, gently, non-threateningly. They hovered over an airport in China here about this last year for an hour and a half, and they shut down the operations of the entire airport. And then they hovered over O'Hare in Chicago, and they've been showing themselves here and there and everywhere else.
Yeah.
So they're a part of the disclosure, but they're playing it cool. They're playing it very gently. Because, Carrie, they know us better than we know ourselves.
Well, I hear you on that. Look, I want to know if you've heard about the idea that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks are going to be leaking some UFO cables that contain information about a supposed war with craft coming out of Antarctica. Have you heard of that?
Well, I heard rumors about it, but I haven't seen anything about it.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, and I'm just curious whether or not you think that there is an actual operational base down there, and whether that it is realistic that there might be some ETs down there that we might be at war with.
Well, listen, Carrie, we do not have the ability, we do not have the technology to go to war with them. It's as simple as that. But we're dealing with extraterrestrial intelligence, Carrie, that is 100,000 years, if not more, ahead of us. And not only psychically, psychologically, but technologically. So we're not about to go to war with them. Now, I understand that we are working with one group that is not getting along too well with one of the other groups. And it appears to be, Carrie, a part of what we used to call a family feud. You know, I used to joke about it. I deeply miss Zechariah Stitchin. The old man was right on with most of his work. I've known him for years, and I've supported him for years. And he talked about a feud, a dysfunctional family feud between two different groups of one extraterrestrial family. Now, that family feud, apparently, is still going on. And it's a clan feud, apparently. And we may be supporting one part of the clan while, the other part of the clan is not too happy about it. But we're not at war with them because we're not capable of going to war with them. It's as simple as that.
Well, I'm actually not so sure about that, I have to say. What about, it's possible that back when you were at SHAPE headquarters that we weren't able to hold our own. But we've come a long way since then in black projects.
Well, we've come a long way. There's no question about it, Carrie. But a lot of the reasons we've come a long way is we've been getting some first-hand help from one of the groups out there. And that group is has got power you wouldn't believe. And we've been working with one group now for 40 years. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm actually at a parking lot with my car because Skype is down. I normally use Skype. So my dog is in the car and barking at another dog, which is very, very convenient. Live radio here.
How quaint. How quaint.
So, Bob, I still have to say that I think that black projects have come so far. I mean, you and I have talked about, just recently we came and visited you and we got some testimony from you about a base on Mars.
Yeah, there is a base on Mars. As a matter of fact, we've got a team up there now. But that's not going to come out officially for a long, long time. Carrie, we have a small complement on the moon right now, thanks to the courtesy of this one group that we've been working closely with. That's why NASA is not planning to go back to the moon, because we've already got a contingent on the moon. And we also have a small contingent on Mars. But that is a result of a close relationship we have with one of the extraterrestrial groups. And boy, that's dynamite, you know. People wonder why NASA is saying, oh, we're not going back to the moon, we can't afford it, all this yakety-yak. Good God, honey, the days of rockets are over. We've reached a point technologically that the idea of blowing up and blasting a rocket off of Canaveral to the moon just doesn't make sense. It goes back 50 years, for God's sake. We've given up on rocket technology, other than just, to keep the public calmed down. We keep sending up satellites and all sorts of things, but the technology, Carrie, is so far beyond rocket science that it isn't even funny. And that's one of the things that really ticks me off, is that I've been talking to people, and I've had information from people that I trust, is that the true technology that we have our hands on is well over 100 years beyond what they're still teaching in an American university. And that really frustrates me, Carrie, that there's such a gap between what the public knows and what some of the corporate commitments and some of the corporate operations are involved. Most of our technology today is in the hands of the corporations.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and it is a tragedy. It is a tragedy that astronauts die going up tin cans.
Oh, that's bad. Listen, honey, there is a new book out which I strongly recommend you read. Rick Dolan has put a new book out called A.D.
Yes.
And I know Rick. I've known him for some years now, and he's a tremendous scholar. He's a young man I deeply respect and admire. And he's laid out some pretty blunt things in his book, A.D. And I strongly recommend any of your listeners to read A.D. Rick Dolan is a bit of a genius in my book.
Yeah, Rich is a fabulous guy. And actually, he was on my show just last week. And he's a good friend. He has been a good friend to Camelot over the years. In fact, he's been one of our consultants, if you will, from time to time on various cases. And yes, I'm aware of his new book, and I do highly recommend it. I haven't read it myself yet, but I do hope to, yes.
Well, I've known Rick for some time, and his first two volumes of UFOs in the National Security State are dynamite. They're outstanding themselves, and I'm waiting for the third volume of that to come out. But Rick's A.D., the recent book, is dynamite. He lays out a lot of very factual information. And he's had some sources that I know and trust that have been giving him some deep inside information. Carrie, you're familiar with what some of our retired and some of our deceased great scientists have said before they died. Carrie, we've had a relationship with extraterrestrial intelligence now for 60 years. Werner von Braun said that at a news conference one time in the 60s. And it was in the newspapers, for God's sake.
Yes. Well, I mean, there's always the people that quote the Skunk Works individual.
Oh, Ben Rich.
Ben Rich, yeah, which he seemed like, he was totally clued in as to what was going on.
Well, Ben, before he died, gave a little comment or two at a retirement dinner that they were throwing for him. And that's where he said bluntly and publicly, he said, we have a science that's well over 100 years beyond what mainstream establishment science would understand. He says not only that, but he says we can take E.T. home. And he said it jokingly. I think that was about the same time the movie E.T. was playing all over the country. And Ben Rich says, we can take E.T. home. And then David Froning told me, right to my face at a conference, David was a retired aerospace engineer who spent at least 30 years working for several of the big aerospace companies. And he said that we have had anti-gravity and zero-point energy for 40 years. And David Froning said that, for God's sake, 15 years ago. So that gives you some idea of the gap between what we know of as modern science and what is actually going on.
Well, absolutely. What I want to know, Bob, is your son, is he still involved in with a nuclear submarine?
My son retired last year, Carrie. He spent 30 years in the Navy. He spent 12 years on aircraft carriers, on the nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, the Nimitz-class carriers. He also spent 12 years in the Pentagon. And while my son was on active duty, I had an opportunity to meet through him a number of top-ranking naval admirals and people who filled me in on some information, off the record, of course. Vice Admiral Wilson told me one time, he says, you know, Bob, we've created a nightmare of security agencies within our country. And this is a 3-star admiral, Carrie, who told me flat to my face. He said, we've got a problem. He says, the problem we've got is we don't know what we know. And he says the worst part of it is, in terms of national security, we don't know what we don't know. Well, that makes a lot of sense, and he was telling us about why 9/11 happened. We could have stopped that. We had the information to stop 9/11. But our intelligence agencies could not get together and share information because everything was so damn compartmentalized that one hand didn't know what the other hand was doing. And I'm hoping that it's improved a little bit, but I still worry about it.
Well,
no, I don't. My son retired, honey, so I've lost a little of the contact that I had through him. I used to visit him at the Pentagon when he was assigned there, and I got to know a few people, and because I always managed to protect people's identity.
Bob? Okay, we're going to commercial. We're going to be right back. Hi, this is Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot Whistleblower Radio. And we are on the air with Bob Dean. And, Bob, are you still there?
I'm here, sweetheart.
Wonderful. So just before the commercial, we were talking about your son and your access to Pentagon brass and what was going on with you in terms of your access at this time. What I'm curious about is I know that in our interviews, and we've done several interviews, actually 3 major interviews with you at this time, they're hugely popular. But I know that you must have more information than what you've already released.
Carrie, I'll be honest with you. I could probably talk to you for 5 hours about what I've learned, but the opportunity just has never come up. I will be with. I will. Anytime you show up, and anytime you want to sit down and talk, honey, I'll talk to you on camera. I'll talk to you on radio, and I'll tell you what I've seen and what I've learned, and I'll be as honest and as straightforward as I can be. But last February in Laughlin, I confided in you something that I had never confided publicly before. And that was that I have had a personal relationship with non-human intelligence since I was 2 years old. And I've kept my mouth shut about that for so long because in the military, and even the 14 years I spent working with FEMA, you don't talk about things like that. You don't share information like that. Because in those days, they would either lock you up or put you in an asylum or something. But I came out honestly last February in Laughlin and shared that with you because a good friend of mine, Neil Freer, over in Santa Fe, published a white paper here over a year ago about a personal relationship that he had with non-human intelligence since he was 7 years old. And I figured that, if Neil had the courage to do it, I figured, damn it, I'm going to come out of the closet and share what I've experienced and what I've seen and what I've learned. And indeed, I have had a personal relationship with at least one group of non-human intelligence since I was 2.5 years old. And that still is going on, Carrie.
Yes, I believe it. So do you want to talk about, because we do have some listeners here that might not know your background. you want to give kind of a summation of your how you got into SHAPE headquarters and so on and so forth?
Well, I'll be brief, honey. I don't want to go into the whole story. I'll be frank with you. My history is boring to me now. I spent 27 years on active duty in the United States Army. And during most of those years, Carrie, I had a top secret clearance. I went to SHAPE headquarters in 1963, and my top secret clearance was upgraded to cosmic top secret. And I spent 4.5 years at SHAPE headquarters in Paris. And that's when I was exposed to that classified document called an assessment. And, Carrie, that was the beginning of my eyes being open. And I haven't been able to walk away from the reality of that ever since. I've been on a journey for over 46 years now that I've never been able to walk away from or turn my back on. And that is the reality of the extraterrestrial presence on planet Earth. And since 1991, Carrie, when I came out of the closet, as it were, so to speak, I spoke at a conference in Tucson, Arizona, sponsored by Wendell Stevens, a good friend of mine who passed away here just this last year. And in 91, I came out in a big way and started speaking publicly about the reality. And as a result, I was denied a promotion by the county sheriff, who I happened to have been working through and for at that time. And I had to sue the SOB, and it took me 2 years of litigation, lawsuit, cost me $20,000 of money I didn't have. And after 2 years of litigation, I won the lawsuit. I walked away, I retired, I got my pension, I got my back pay, and I've been talking about the reality of the extraterrestrial presence ever since. But I've only spoken to people who invited me to speak, and I've only spoken to people who were open-minded and fair enough to listen to what I had to say. And essentially, that's the story of my life. I'm going to be 82 here in this coming March, and Carrie, I'm at a point in my life where I don't give a damn anymore what people think about me, whether they call me a liar or a storyteller or whatever. It doesn't matter anymore. I talk to you because you're one of the few people that I really do trust, and you've become kind of family to me, Carrie. So I'll be candid and honest with you whenever I get the chance. But we're dealing with the greatest story in human history, Carrie. Not only is the story in human history, but is the story of human history. And my belief is that it's got to be told. This information has got to come out eventually. That people, I think, once the truth is out, that it will bring about an expansion of consciousness in people. And Carrie, that's crucial to our survival as a species. It's crucial to our survival as a race. We've got to expand our awareness and our consciousness to realize that we're not alone. We have never been alone. And that we have had and still have an intimate interrelationship with advanced extraterrestrial intelligence from the very beginnings of our history. And that's a dynamite story. And that's so big, Gary, that's why poor old Barack Obama is not about to have a news conference anytime soon about that. But right. It will come out. It will come out in time, and there is a form of disclosure underway, but it's a subliminal educational program.
No doubt about it. Bob, I'd like to ask you if you could relate to the listeners what I read recently about you, which I think you had described to us, but I actually read a description of an event that happened in your life, and I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, in which you were in war, and you were sitting, I believe you were sitting around a fire or something like that with several military officers and other men, and you stepped away for a minute, and they all were killed, and you were the only one that survived. Can you tell that story?
Well, Carrie, I spent 6 years on active duty as a commissioned officer. I led combat troops in Korea in 1951. I led combat reconnaissance organization in Southeast Asia in 1970. And my life has been saved at least a half a dozen times where I should have died and I didn't. And after a time it began to dawn on me that, I didn't want to say that I've had a charmed life, Gary, but I've been looked after, I've been protected. And the incident you referred to happened in Korea in 1951. I was an infantry first lieutenant, and we were on the lines at the time. And we thought we were behind the main line enough that we were safe to have a fire. And about 6 or maybe 7 of us altogether were sitting around a fire, smoking and talking and having a beer. And I had to get up and take a leak. I had to go off into the woods or into the brush to take a pee. And I stepped away from the group. And while I was over in the bushes relieving myself, an enemy mortar round came in and landed right on top of the damn fire. And it killed all the guys sitting around it. I lost 6 good friends. They all died. And here I am off in the bushes relieving myself, and I wasn't even touched. And that really did happen. And it happened again a couple of times in Vietnam. So I've been kind of looked after, I think. And as I jokingly used to say, I have good friends in high places.
That's right, absolutely. Well, I know, and it's really stunning what happened to you those times in which you were saved, if you will, to stay on planet Earth and to reach this the sort of, well, in human terms, it's old, but I have to say that in ET terms, you're a young man.
What was that again?
In ET terms, in terms of the ETs, you're actually a young man still.
Oh, I'm only 82. Yeah, I'm still a young man, yeah.
Yeah.
Carrie, I shared this with you before. Some years ago, I had a series of hypnotic post-life regressions. And I've never quite been the same since. And what I jokingly refer to is the hypnotist lifted the little lid on my little teapot of subliminal, subconscious, unconscious memory. And after the sessions were over, I had about 4 sessions, I think. We never got the little lid back on my little teapot. And I refer to it in a humorous way, but what it has caused in my life, it has caused spontaneous recollections of past memories. And that is quite a disturbing experience, Carrie. For anybody who's listening who may have experienced that, they will know exactly what I'm talking about. When you've had that happen, you find yourself having spontaneous recollections of past memories from past lives. And that can be a sobering experience. And so, yeah, this time I've only been on the planet 82 years. But I've been coming and going, honey, for a long, long time. I've been coming and going on planet Earth for several thousand years. And I'll be honest with you, I don't want to come back anytime soon.
I hear you.
I jokingly say to people, I says, I have my ticket out, but I haven't had it punched yet. But I'm not afraid of dying. Sadly enough, at my point in life, my joints, my knees, my shoulders, my hip sockets and all that, they're telling me, it's time to go. And I'm kind of looking forward to this departure, Carrie. I really am. I'm not afraid of death because there is no such thing.
That's right. Absolutely.
You don't die. What you do, you transform out of this physical form into your eternal, immortal self, and that soul, that spirit, Carrie, is immortal, literally. And I'm looking forward to going home again and seeing some of my old friends.
I understand. Okay. Well, Bob, I wanted to know if in your view, back in the military days, you think you were ever messed with mind control and or implants in terms of the military, like a MyLab situation?
Terry, when I retired from the Army in '76, I received a couple of invitations, as it were. I received a couple of opportunities to retire from the Army and apply for a job within the Defense Intelligence Agency, because I had worked with them in Southeast Asia for about a year and a half. And I purposely avoided taking a job with DIA. And some of my old cronies, some of my old friends accepted the offer. You know, we'd worked with them in Southeast Asia, and I'd worked with the CIA for a time while I was in Saigon. But I turned down the offer to apply for a job, and I'm glad I did. I took a job with FEMA instead of DIA, and I'm glad that I did that. But some of my old friends worked with DIA, and a couple of them, as of last February, were still with DIA. There was one sitting in the audience up there in Laughlin.
I believe it. But that doesn't quite answer my question. Okay, we're going to go to break here. Sorry. This is Terry Cassidy, Project Camelot. Hey, this is Terry Cassidy, Project Camelot, Whistleblower Radio. We're on the air with Bob Dean, and I want to announce that we can take questions if you want to email me at Kerry@projectcamelot.org. That's Kerry, Kerry, at projectcamelot.org. And send your questions to me via email. And I'd also like to open up the board on the second hour. I do have access to the Internet, although my connection is sporadic. So I believe that we can open up the live conference manager here and try to take some calls during the second hour here of the show, because I know that a lot of people would like to ask Bob questions. Alternatively, you can email me. Bob, we were sort of interrupted there, and we're going to be interrupted again, unfortunately, by a commercial, I believe, pretty shortly here. But I did want to get some clarity because I didn't hear you answer my question.
What was the question, Freedom?
Okay, the question was whether you think, when I asked you whether you thought you had implants or you'd been messed with by the military in a MyLab kind of situation, you told me you never took a job with the DIA, and I can understand how that illusion would relate to my question, but that's kind of an elusive answer.
Well, Terry, I'll be frank with you. I don't believe I have been implanted by intelligence department operative. I do not have an implant to my knowledge. Now, let me tell you something I've learned over the years. Every human being on this planet is unique. I mean, it's just like the fingerprint. Every human being on this planet has a unique aura, and that aura is a representation of the energy in their soul. And each human being on this planet, all 6 billion of us, are totally, individually unique. And our friends from out there, the ones that I've encountered, the ones that I've got to know, do not need implants to deal with us. They do not need implants to find us. They can find us in a split second by the unique pattern of our aura. And they're so advanced, Kerry. My God, we're dealing with intelligences that some of them are 1 million years ahead of us. They have psychically and psychologically and technologically the ability to find us, each individual on this planet, any time they want. And they can spot us, they can drop into our lives, they can extract us off the planet. And it's happened to me 12 times. So they don't need an implant to do that. Now, to my knowledge, Carrie, I have avoided being implanted by the intelligence operative. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think they've ever had an opportunity to implant me because I don't think that they've been allowed to do it. I'll be honest with you, Carrie. I think that I've had this relationship with non-human intelligence, and I think that's not only the reason I've survived 3 wars, but I think, as I jokingly say, and I say this seriously, I do indeed have friends in high places. So I don't believe I have any implants, but I don't believe my friends out there need them. They can spot me any damn time they want. They can talk to me any time they want. They can insert themselves into my life any time they want. So I don't think they need implants in that sense.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, well, I certainly appreciate that in terms of the ETs that you're dealing with. Which, would you call the ETs that you're dealing with the Anunnaki, or would you call them the Nordics, or how would you refer to them?
Well, you get into that term Anunnaki. I use it in a well, how do I use it, try to describe it? It's a term I used generically. And in the ancient Sumerian, it simply means those who came down from above, or those who came from heaven to earth. And generically, that could apply to, any number of them, because a whole bunch of them are involved with us.
Yes.
The ones I've personally been involved with.
Zachariah Sitchin was talking about a certain race of Anunnaki that involved the brothers Enlil and Enki, and that is a certain type of ET.
Well, that's the family that's had the dysfunction here for a long time.
Yeah.
There are apparently 2 different clans in that original family organization, Gary. There was the clan that supported the one brother, Enlil, and then there was the faction that supported the other brother, the half-brother, Enki. And apparently that clan difference still exists. And apparently there is indeed still going on a little bit of a disruption between the 2 factions of that family. But there are others that, I have had personal contact, Carrie, with what I would call the Nordic. They're not all blonde and blue-eyed. Many of them have, what did I say? With kind of a dark chestnut-colored hair. I've met them with dark chestnut-colored hair. I've met them with green eyes. I've even met those who are so human that they can sit and talk to you in a conference or in a restaurant or aboard an aircraft that look so much like us that you wouldn't know. So now whether those are human hybrids, which is a possibility, but the ones that I have known and been aboard ship with are rather tall, rather thin. They're not skinny, but they're trim. They're very trim, very athletic, and they have long. Many of them have fair-colored hair and blue eyes, but it's not a pattern that you can follow. As I said, many of the so-called Nordics have darker hair and green eyes and brown eyes.
Okay,
I guess the ones that I have known personally more frequently are what we'd call Nordics.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to break right now. We'll be right back after the top of the hour. This is Project Camelot Whistleblower Radio.